I have really grown to dislike the minutes right before we start, because everything's ready to go and we're just sitting here. So I started a couple minutes early. We'll pre-drink and wait for everybody to show. Welcome to Friday Sips Live. I am Danless today, just a little old me and a whole bunch of whiskey bottles. So that's it. So we'll sip a little and see if anybody joins us. There's Larry. Hey, Larry. I started a couple minutes early, Larry. I got tired of just sitting here without everybody. There's Scott. We got some member of Dan's family here. That's nice. Scott, cheers. So now it's right on the nose, 2:30 Mountain Time. Thanks for joining. Without Dan today, he's traveling, doing some work to feed his family or some other silliness that way, but he'll be back later today. We're going to have us a whiskey night tomorrow afternoon and eat a little food, drink a little whiskey with friends. That's exciting. And today, we're going to talk about a couple things. One is what I'm going to do with all of the open bottles. So I've got to get rid of a bunch of bottles. I've grown disliking the fact that I've got so many bottles of whiskey that I'll probably never drink. It seems a waste. And so for the unopened bottles, I'm going to see if I can trade those. I've done 3 trades now. All were, I had one valuable bottle, and I traded those for multiple, what to me were each one of those I'd rather have than the one that I traded. So I turned 3 bottles into 10. I think 4 Bookers, a Russell's single barrel rye, some single barrel bourbons, some highway, a bunch of stuff. I'm going to do the opposite. I've got, I think, 3 Elijah Craig barrel proofs that I don't really care about, and a handful of other bottles that I think other people value more than I do, and see if I can turn 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of those into one bottle of the Kentucky Owl Batch 1 Rye. That has been my favorite. It's that center bottle. Let's see, that center bottle right there. See if I can turn that into one more of those. They're delicious. So that's what we're going to do with that. Now with the open bottles, these guys, and I started to put them all on the table, but the table's not big enough. What I thought we'd do is share those samples. So I bought a flat of 1 ounce bottles. They're the little brown sample bottles. As you know, I've got my handy dandy new labeler, and I'm gonna share those bottles. Hey, Bender's here. And so what I'll do is when I get those bottles, I'll to the usual cast that's here every week. Thank you so much. I'll shoot emails to everybody and just let you know what I've got sampled out, and then I'll figure out a box size. I've always just used the free box at the post office, but I'll figure out the box and how many sample bottles fit in those. It'll be 4 or 5, and we'll see which ones you want samples of, and we'll ship those out and share. So this pre-drinking I was doing was this Leaper's Fork, which I don't think is very popular. All the stuff I post about Leaper's Fork doesn't get a lot of play. If you can get to this stuff, I think it's delicious. It's expensive. This is an $85 bottle, but the Tennessee whiskey is delicious. The bourbon was good. It wasn't as good as the Tennessee whiskey when we opened it, but it has really come to life. It's quite tasty. So even at the $85 I paid for these, happy with this. The other thing I was going to talk about is that as happy as I am with this has been a year of disappointing bottles, which is unusual. I've always marveled with, given the number of bottles that I buy, how few of them are duds. But this year there's been some notable duds. Once we finish today, I'm going to record some back to the bottle videos. This is I'm going to call it. We're not quite done with 2022 yet. I don't think anything will be more disappointing to me than this Hidden Barn Series 1 bottle. Frankly, I think it borders on fraud. I think that when people with the reputations like that are involved with this put this whiskey out, I feel like I got taken. If it was this bottle at that price from some nondescript distillery with people that are just people, I'd go, whatever, I chose poorly. But when Jackie Zykan's involved, when the Neely family's involved, when some of the locals that are in Colorado are involved, you expect better. And frankly, I think you have a right to expect better. So that's super disappointing. This is going to be the most disappointing bottle of the year, I have no doubt. But if you want samples of it, I'll definitely happily sample it out. Maybe somebody else likes it. Taste is subjective, I happen to think. And this isn't the Cream of Kentucky Rye bad. This is young, rough. It's like a char slurry is really all it tastes like. About the only thing it's got going for it is a decent mouthfeel. So I think some people might enjoy it. I'm not going to tell you what you like and don't like. Hey, Eric. But, if it was a $30 bottle, that's because I actually pulled this guy out because it's kind of got that charry note up front. I'd drink Old Tub at 16 or 17 bucks, 18 bucks a bottle all day long before I drink this $75 bottle. So super disappointing. Borderline fraudulent, in my opinion, given the people involved. And that's that. So that's the opening piece of that. So we're going to share some bottles. We're going to have a good time with that. I don't want to put that in the dump glass. Just delicious. I bought 2 glasses because Dan's not here. So I have a Dan glass and a me glass. And I'll drink for both of us because I'm that kind of guy. And so next thing is I need opinions. You may have noticed a while back we changed our logo. I spent a lot of time with a designer coming up with that little logo that you see wherever you see it. It's in the bottom left, wherever it's in the screen, but it's our logo. And I like it. And then we decided to put it on t-shirts. And something happened on the t-shirt that brought out the fact that, frankly, it looks, well, you tell me. Somehow everybody's just focusing on this shape. I don't want to say the shape for fear the YouTube algorithm will pick up the word penis or phallic and ding me for it. But I ordered a one-off because we had some samples or some, proofs made with a darker t-shirt, and that's just all you can see. So I like your opinion. What do you see when you see that logo? Is it a combination pot and column still, or is it something else? So, and I just made the one-off just to see what it looked like on a white t-shirt. But we will eventually get t-shirts, be it with that logo or some other logo that doesn't look like that one looks. But that kind of even showed it there. So, in the comments, what do you see? Dan thinks if we use a monochrome setup where everything in the logo is the same color, perhaps your eye will be drawn to the logo in its entirety rather than the one shaped thing in the middle. We'll see. I'm surprised I didn't notice that before. Usually anything involving that, I'd go, oh, look, penis. But I didn't. So there you go. Eric, thank you. Eric sees the pot. I guess the better question, Eric, is would you wear said t-shirt or would you worry that from a distance people thought you had a big penis on your shirt? And by the way, Dan's other comment was, let's just own it. It is what it is. And I kind of lean that way. I don't have a problem with that. It's one of those if you know kind of things. All right, let's drink some more whiskey. Recently, I was making an old-fashioned, and I needed some bourbon for that. And as we've already talked about, I got lots of open bottles, so I did not want to open another bottle. Some pipes. Yeah, then it gets complicated. But that is another option, Larry, is to go back to the designer and come up with some different stuff. We'll see. So I was looking for some whiskey for an old-fashioned. Looked in the back of the cabinet and found this guy. This Evan Williams 1783 small batch. This is something I think they recently, maybe in the last year or so, changed their small batch offering to this. Now, small batch for Evan Williams and or Heaven Hill could still be hundreds of barrels. Who knows? Don't really care. But I think I paid $15 for this. And I was just shocked at how tasty it was. And obviously I should know since I had consumed I've already made 2 old fashions. So it's about there when I pulled it out. And, I should have noticed that before. I didn't dislike it, but it was really good. In fact, it was a very, very tasty old fashioned. And I decided that 90 proof, it's a big decision, but I think 90 proof is the best proof for old fashions. And when I do mine, I muddle a Demerara sugar cube with some bourbon and the bitters, so I don't put any water in it. 100 proof's fine. I make a lot of old fashions with Wild Turkey 101, but this just seemed just right. I mean, I think my all-time favorite old fashioned whiskey is Weller Special Reserve. It's the right proof. It's sweet enough, but not too sweet, given there's going to be more sugar in it. This was fabulous, so I wanted to share that because we are talking about the practical side of whiskey, and it's also interesting that we were recently talking about Heaven Hill whiskey, and I've kind of figured out that I don't really care for old Heaven Hill whiskey. Once it gets to be about 10 years old, that's really all I care about. After that, to me, it gets too dry and too bitter on the finish. So Larry likes it too. I think it tastes a lot like the Black Label 86 proof. Is that couple extra 4 proof points. Maybe, they don't age state this, but it's a Kentucky straight whiskey, straight bourbon whiskey without an age on it, which means it's at least 4 years old. I just think it's quite good. Yeah, even up against, a bottle that costs 5 times as much and has even a few more proof points on it, it holds up. What I thought I'd do with Dan's class, since we do talk about all the time using that baseline whiskey, and you might also be thinking, well, what about the Evan Williams Bottled and Bond? Quite good. I like that a lot, and frankly, they cost about the same thing. So you get a few more proof points, probably no more age, probably smaller, you guess smaller batches, because it's one season. This, who knows, maybe this has got some older whiskey in it since it's not confined to one distilling season. But let's see how it holds up against the, I forgot Pour Cam. How this holds up against our baseline Wild Turkey 101. Quite well. This is richer, the Wild Turkey 101, and it's typically those batches when they come up with the Wild Turkey 101, they don't really call them releases, but 6, 7, and 8-year-old bourbon, so much older you'd expect than what's in here. And I think you get that. You get the richness on it. But you're talking about these days $6 or $7 a bottle difference. I don't know. Does that matter? Definitely different. I'll tell you this. Gigantic, big fat vanilla and brown sugar on the nose of that. It's just delicious. I think delicious in the, respecting that it's a $15 or $16, $17 bottle of bourbon, but that's pretty good. And I'm not one to shy away from making old fashions with nice whiskey. I do it quite regularly and occasionally even stick it on Instagram as a, good whiskey makes good cocktails. But I think that there is a limit. There's a diminishing return after some point. I just couldn't believe how good that was. I had another one the next night, and then I made one last night with the Wild Turkey, which I thought was okay, but I really thought the balance, the way I make an old-fashioned, everybody's different. The way I make one, the balance was better with this one. I enjoyed it a lot. So, there you go. Eric's going to buy one to try the new expression. I don't think I ever, maybe I did. I don't remember having the older small batch from Evan Williams, but I had quite a few of the Bottled and Bonds. I think those are pretty good. So maybe I'll use the Pour Cam for the dunk class today. All right. So that's that. A little recap too on. I only brought one over. I brought the. Recently we were talking about these two Boulder Spirits releases. This is the Bourbon. This is the cask strength, 66.9% straight bourbon. It's 5 years old. I think it was 5 years old. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. Not a distillery only release, but not a widely released bourbon. So I'm not sure how they're going to be available or not, but they're going to do more of these releases. And then the other one was the Trailhead, which was the single malt that's made up of two batches. It's a bunch of malt got aged. One was peated, one was not peated. At 4 years, they got moved into two different Pedro Jimenez PX sherry barrels. Spent almost a year there and came out. That is fabulous. Now, that is a distillery-only release. They sent most of that to Canada, so you won't really be able to get that unless you can go to the distillery. There was 180 bottles left when I was there. They you can see the open the bottle video I did there at the distillery with Ryan Negley, the global marketing manager and brand ambassador for. I made up a different title that day. I felt bad I couldn't remember his actual title. I think the ones I made up were better, but it's delicious. And it's I did bring it over. It's that one, and this will certainly be depending on when we do the samples and how fast I drink it. This is certainly on the table for samples. I would encourage you to enjoy that. I did just send some samples in a t-shirt, or Dan sent it, but so Larry's got these. So Larry, let us know if you get into those, what you think. I think I'll have a little bit of that bourbon, 133 something proof, quite delicious. And I swear, when I opened this at the distillery and sipped it neat, it did not drink so hot. But it's hot, but kind of like those Jack Daniels, fire breathing 130 something proof single barrels. They're hot, but there's a ton of flavor. That's what this is like. It's just got mounds and mounds of flavor under it. Ooh, licorice today. That's new. That is so good. And I swear, it just doesn't drink that hot. Maybe I need to think about things if I'm drinking near 134 proof whiskey and it doesn't taste hot. But although I'll tell you, I'm sweating now. Okay, maybe it's a little hot. It doesn't feel hot on the palate. Just delicious. Just delicious. I think for Dan's class, we'll try some of the Trailhead. And the thing about this guy that really killed me when we opened it, I love peat. I love peat. I like, big fat peat, Lefroy peat, like the Ardbeg peat. Love the peat. This peat, though, is not in your face peat. This peat is on the nose. I mean, there really isn't any peat on the nose. Maybe the faintest, if you know there's peat, maybe, but if you didn't know, you just wouldn't pick up the peat. And then when it hits the palate, it's kind of there, but then it just blooms, gently slides in, and it's quite good. Yeah, and it's got I don't know, it is peaty, and it's their peated malt, so it's not just, a lot of people will finish in a Lefroy barrel and pick up some of that essence, but it was their peated malt. It's just not overly peated, and he didn't tell me the parts per million of peat, but I'm guessing if Ardbeg, I think, is 45 or 50 parts per million peat, this is probably 20 or 30 parts per million, and then of course it got married with a whole nother barrel of whiskey that had no peated malt in it. So it's pretty subtle. It's distinct. It's definitely there. I wish more people would do that, where and Ryan even explained it that way. They want peat to be at a level where you can really experience the kind of flavors it can bring to whiskey, rather than, you know, getting beat over the head with it with Lefroy, which is fun, and I love the funkiness of Lefroy, but it's peat forward. This is not peat forward. This is malt forward. It's not even sherried forward. The sherried's pretty subtle. Anyway, I think it's delicious. It'll be in the batch too that we send some samples of, you know, provided I don't drink it all first, which is always possible. Yeah, Eric says favorites Lefroy. It is really dark. So Eric pointed out this is very dark, and for something that's been a total of right at 5, and they age stated this at 4.5 years, I think, somewhere on there. I think they did, and he said they just wanted 4.5. I think one barrel spent a little longer, and they didn't want to say 5, but it was close to 5. But 4 years in the standard, their number 3 char new barrel. It is dark though. It's quite dark. So is the bourbon. It's not as dark as that. And you think maybe it picked up some from the sherry. Certainly could have picked up some color from the sherry barrels, but the sherry influence is not dominant. So I don't think they, and he and I talked about this because it bothers me when distillers will leave a lot, you know, gallons of the sherry down there when they finish something. This is not that. This is the right way to do it. But it is dark, yeah. I think that's a couple things. You know, the evaporation rate here in Colorado, much higher than in Kentucky. So it's proofs are going up in the barrel, and it's you know, there's a lot of evaporation, new barrels. I don't know, but it is definitely dark, darker than most things you'd see in that range. Let's see. Let's catch up. Dan usually handles comments better than I do. Yeah, the Cardeas is, I don't even know how to say Cardeas. I've had it once. It's delicious. Oh, Scott's got a friend named Frank joining. Hey, welcome, Frank. Thanks for hanging out. Even hanging out with Scott. He needs friends, and that's nice of you to do that. Bender's only ever had the Lefroy 10-year, which is a bottle of that open over there. It's delicious. And, you know, proofs are different with Scotch. So the 10-year, I think, is 43%, so 86 proof. But there's just a lot of flavor in that. And they use the used barrels to age, so there's more focus on the distillate. But that Lefroy, the quarter cask is nice for a step up. I'm going to tell you what, I paid $130 for this 16-year-old Lefroy. It's delicious, but frankly, for the money, there's a 10-year-old cask strength that is non-chill filtered and generally 55 to 58% ABV, and it is fabulous. It's been my favorite so far. Of course, now I've never had the 25 or 30-year-old Lefroy, but that, if for my money, and I think it's around $100 now, $80, $90, $100, I would buy that 10-year-old cask strength again before I'd buy the 16-year-old, although the 16's quite good. But money for money, that's what I do. And just much like Eric looking for that other release, it's sherried. Sherried Lefroy peated malt is quite good, so don't pass that up. Yes, Larry asked, do all the bolder bourbon expressions use the 44% malted barley? They do. So all of them from the 80-something proof and the bottle and bond and this one all share that same mash bill. It's the 44% malted barley. It's 51% corn, so just enough, and then the balance is rye. Yeah, Bender's only seen the cask strength one. I agree. I walked past those for a few years before I bought one, and they're just delicious. And they were $80. I think I paid $60 a couple times, or at least once I paid $60 on sale. Now they're $90 or $100. But I think if you're stepping up into that range, before you go crazy, anything past 20 in Lefroy in the U.S. gets crazy expensive. That 10-year-old cask strength, is so good if you like peated Scotch. Yeah, agreed, Eric. That I can't remember how to say it. Maybe I never knew Cardeas or whatever. It's a PX cast. First time I had that, I think it was travel retail only for a long time years ago, and a friend of mine that I work with actually now bought a bottle and gave me a sample. Delicious. It's so good when you get sherried Lafroig stuff. You get, if you get into something like Lagavulin that's sherried, that's different. That's sophisticated. When you take just the raucous nature and the taste of the sea with Lafroig and some sherry, it gets good. There's Ryan. Hey, Ryan. Ryan, I'm glad you got to show up live today. Ryan usually watches after the fact and sends me some notes, so much appreciated. So let's recap for Ryan. I hate to do it, cut it short, but given it's just me today, I don't know how much you guys want to listen. So first, don't forget this guy. There's inexpensive bottles that are quite tasty. This Evan Williams small batch. I'm surprised it's so good and neat. Makes a heck of an old-fashioned. In fact, in the old-fashioned category, it punches way above its weight. Don't pass that up. And then we're going to send some samples out to the regulars. I got too many open bottles, so we're going to get those together. Once I get that big pack of sample bottles, I'll send some emails to everybody. I've got everybody's emails, I think. If not, I'll reach out and ask for them in comments somewhere. And then that'll be fun, and we'll share those as they come in. I'd like everybody's opinion on what to do with the t-shirt. I think I will take Dan's advice and do a darker t-shirt with a monotone thing on there, but it's fun. And by the way, if you use Canva, that's what I did with this. I was just playing with them on Canva. You can just check out and buy one t-shirt for $20, which I thought was a pretty reasonable way to test that. Also, I did make it too big. I'm so fat right now that when I put the t-shirt on, it really just looks like Ractica still, because you can't really see the P and the L because I'm too round for that. And then I guess that's it. This is fun. So we will be without Dan next week. He's also traveling. I'm going to try and find a special guest. So maybe I'll ask Ryan from Boulder Spirits to sit in on Friday Sips Live. Frank said it's not an... Oh, well, so Scott's friend Frank is not an overt Johnson. That's good to know. So maybe everybody doesn't see what some of us are seeing in the t-shirt. So I like that. And he would wear it. Well, then we'll get Frank a t-shirt when we make one, and he can wear it. Let's see. So without Dan again next week, I'm going to try and find a sit-in guest. Maybe our friend Jacob from Drinking with Mika last week could sit in with me and hang out. If any of you guys happen to be in the Colorado area or around Denver, let me know. You can be the sit-in guest next week, or plane tickets are cheap. Fly in and hang out with me. We'll drink some whiskey. And I think that's it. So cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will see you in the next